Hello, hello. In this episode, I am going to share with you what has happened in the span of about 1 week. Okay. First, my team member quit on me. Okay. So I've talked a lot about my ninja, my girl, Sarah. She quit. She doesn't want to work with me anymore. We're going to talk about it. I had to fire my CPA. I received a 6-figure tax bill. I obviously need to hire new people on my team, and I got an unexpected inheritance. Okay? We have a lot to discuss. Buckle up. Welcome to All In with Allie, the podcast for online business owners and entrepreneurs who are ready to create the life and business of their dreams. Oof. Your all's been tested. Okay. So, man, I have a lot to share. So, okay. I am a big fan of prayer. I consider myself to be very spiritual. And lately I have been getting more into my spiritual practices again. I've been meditating again, which we will talk about, if not in this episode, another episode, because I have a really cool idea for the direction of this podcast in 2024. We'll put a pin in that. We'll get to it. But I've been meditating more. I've been just spending more time in prayer and getting back to being more conscious and aware of my thoughts, how I'm feeling, and my overall belief in the power of the universe and how the universe does have your back, my back, all of our backs, if you believe it, right? It's all about how you decide to look at life. The filter through which you look at situations in your life through is often what you're going to experience. So again, I've been a lot more conscious about this because, with different seasons of life, you go in and out. So anyway, I prayed recently. I don't know where I heard this. I mean, we've all heard this one way or another, but I heard that you can ask for anything. And one of the things that you can pray to God or whomever you pray to is to remove anybody or anything from your life that is not there for your highest good or the highest good of all, or however you want to say that, right? You can pray, like, if there's anything, anybody that is attached to me that should not be, for whatever reason, get him out of here, right? I've prayed this. I've prayed this before. And for whatever reason, I felt the need to pray this again. And there wasn't any, and I want to be clear on that. It wasn't like I was hoping that like somebody would, but get removed or anything like that. I don't know. I just felt called that was probably a good idea. Like, why not? And also that's kind of a scary thing to pray because holy crap, like what if Chris Reeves isn't supposed to be in my life for whatever reason, right? And that's not what I want. But anyway, if you pray for it, you better be ready for a response. And when I tell you, I got a response, big time. And when it came fast and with a vengeance, okay? So like I said at the top of the episode, in 1 week, 2 people on my team that I consider, that I've been working with for years, are now exiting. 1 quit, 1 had to be fired. Okay. So I'm referring to Sarah, who I have talked to many times on this podcast. And I'm also referring to my CPA, who I am not going to name for a few reasons. And, we'll get into it. And it happened fast, right? And it was so interesting because as it was happening, I mean, it came like each situation came with its own share of feelings and emotions and frustrations. But as it was happening through the feelings and the frustration, I also had this deep sense of peace. I knew, I prayed for this. Okay. I asked for this and it is being delivered. And I want to be clear here. Let's talk about Sarah first, because I don't want to like leave this hanging and have anybody get any wrong impression of our relationship and that situation, because it's very important to me that, and I'm obviously just sharing my point of view, but I want to give a fair, I guess, perspective from my end regarding Sarah. This is very important to me because she is important to me. So when I say that I prayed that like anybody who is not meant to be in my life, get them out of here. When I say that, I don't mean like she's not good for my life just because she's one of the people, she quit, and I'll tell you why she quit. But this goes both ways, right? Like that prayer is saying like anybody who's not meant to be in my life, it's for both of our benefit, right? It's not like it's only for me, like she's a bad person and she had to go. I don't believe that at all. I believe like our relationship, our time together played the court, like it's up, the time's up. We came into our lives, each other's lives for a reason. And some relationships are not meant to last forever, obviously. So I just have that deep sense of peace, and I feel like she does as well, especially since she was the one who ultimately made the decision before I did. So, and let's talk about it. And the reason why I want to be clear about this too, the reason why I'm even sharing this on this podcast is because I took you all with me on the journey of hiring Sarah. And when I found her, and I've mentioned her many times on this podcast, she's been on my team now for 2 years. She was an employee of mine for 1 year, and then we shifted, which we'll talk about. And I think it's important that if I talk about how we brought her in, then we need to close the loop. Let's talk about how she's exiting and why, because I've learned a ton from this situation. And anybody who also has a team or is going to be eventually hiring a team, which I hope that's all of you listening, then I have some what I think are powerful wisdom nuggets that you can take with you on your journey, because I've learned a lot through working with Sarah, and things that I definitely will be doing differently moving forward with whoever does ultimately fill her position, which is going to be multiple people, because this woman carried my business. She wore so many hats, and that's actually one of the things that I learned that I will be doing differently moving forward. So, why did she quit? What happened? Well, as I just kind of alluded to, Sarah, when she came on kind of as like a COO position, but like, what does that even mean, right? Like, so that's all around operations. And that's ultimately what I wanted to hire somebody for, or that's one of the things I wanted to hire somebody for. I needed somebody to come in and create operations and systems in my business because they were non-existent. So what I wanted was, if I were to hire somebody else, or if she needed to quit or, move on to something else, then we would have these systems and operations in place and we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel, right? So like I needed her for that. Obviously, operations make your business run smoother. And she definitely did that. And she ended up adopting kind of like a catch-all role. So in my business, I have contractors for different things. So I have a CPA and a bookkeeper. I have my podcast team, Caitlin and Philip. And I have I work with a couple of other contractors for other things that I need. And then there's Sarah. And she, again, just naturally, it was one of those things. It was like, okay, you're going to be taking on a lot of responsibility. And she loved it. That's what she wanted to do. She's super organized. She's super fast. She's a projector in human design. So she's really good at working in short spurts and getting a ton done in a short amount of time. And this made sense. So when I first hired her, we did a 90-day trial, and then she knew that if it worked out, if we both liked working with each other, she would then move into and transition in as a full-time employee for my business, which is what happened. So in 2022, 2022, she transitioned as a full-time employee, and it worked out really well. Now, a couple of things that were, I won't say red flag, but things that came up that were addressed that like I might do a little differently next time. First, when I hired this position, and I've learned this is actually something that I learned from working with other people before I found Sarah. I had worked with other people who had aspirations of being business owners and who wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I would hire them, and, it wasn't that they were bad at their job, but they were like wanting to see the back end of my business to learn how to ultimately do the same thing, which I ain't mad at it, but also I'm not trying to hire somebody and train somebody and pay somebody just to turn around, quit, and become my competition, right? So like when I hired Sarah and I was doing all of those interviews, one of the things that I asked, I was so adamant about this. I asked, what is your vision for your life, right? Like past the point of this position, what do you want to do? Like, what's a dream role for you, in 5 years? Where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a business owner, as a coach, as an entrepreneur? Or do you like being in a supportive role? And anybody who answered like, I want to do what you do, or I want to be a podcaster, I want I was like, nah, out. And Sarah was very clear. I want to be in a supportive role. Great. Okay. So we hired Sarah, and anyways, she became full-time employee, and it was gravy. Now, what we learned was while she was wearing many different hats. And what I mean by that is she was my customer service person. She was my Kajabi person, right? Like anytime I created an offer and needed to, wanted to create like a new product or a new whatever, she would create it in Kajabi. She'd get all the ducks in a row. And I would just have to share out the link, right? So like she became my tech person in that regard. She also took on the role of, I don't even know what you call this, but maybe like customer experience, where when I did group calls or mastermind calls or master classes, she would sit in on the calls and support us if we needed links, or, she would take on host of the call. So I wouldn't worry about having to let people in and out of the group and so on. There's many things that she took on, like client experience, where if we needed to send out gifts or curate gifts for the mastermind or the membership, she would take that on. There was many and a lot of smaller things mixed in there too. But it was a very broad role. Now, with my particular business, there are some weeks where we're very busy. There's a lot going on. I'm launching things. I'm hosting things. There's a lot to be done. And then there are other weeks where there's very little to be done, right? So to me, and I was very clear about that in the beginning too, like, hey, there are going to be some weeks I'm going to need extra support from you. And then there are going to be other weeks where you're going to be basically chilling because it's just a slower week and I'm not creating, I'm not launching, whatever. Anyway, what I liked about that and what I thought was cool about that was I was paying her as a full-time employee, which means regardless of what the week looks like, you are getting paid full-time, right? You're getting paid no matter what. So be on call, be there, but just know you're going to have a pretty chill schedule some weeks, and other weeks it's going to be a little bit busier. Perfect. So that was our agreement. And we did bonuses. We did like all these really cool things. And that worked out well. Well, midway through there, and by the way, again, I'm sharing this because one, it's what happened, but also it's pertinent to the story and things that I learned. And I'm not sharing this from like, she's wrong or I'm wrong or she's right or I'm right. It's just actually what happened. And I'm just going to share my perspective. So part of the way through, she started to see, oh, look, I have all this time on my hands part of the time. And she wanted to do more work, which I love. But instead of finding things to do like in my business as a full-time employee, like trying to think of like, oh, maybe I could create whatever, just things to like help me make more money. She wanted to take on her own clients. She saw like, oh, like I'm really good at this VA type role. Maybe I start my own thing and I can take, and the time was there, right? And I fully believed that she could do both of these things. So she came to me, we had that discussion, but it didn't feel right because the reason why I hired her as an employee, which was, it was an intentional decision, obviously, right? You don't just like go through the motions of hiring an employee on accident. I hired her as an employee specifically and paid her full-time specifically because I didn't want to compete with other people. I didn't want, the way that I operate as a Manny Jen, there are some weeks where there's very little going on. And then all of a sudden I might get inspired and I might want to launch 3 things, right? Like I don't know when I'm going to get an idea. So I need and desire somebody on the team who understands that and who has my back in that way, which is why we set up her position specifically in that way. So full-time employee, she came to me, she had this idea. What if, on the side, I do these things. She wanted to do direct sales and she wanted to take on other clients. The direct sales, I was like, you know what, I don't care what you do. Like if you want to do the direct sales on the side, I'm not going to stop you. But taking on other clients while I'm paying you full-time does not feel good. I don't love that. So what we did instead is we came up with this solution. And I actually got this idea from my coach, Melanie, because they do this in her business. But we came up with this idea that she could create like a sub facet in my business. So it would all be under Allie I. Reeves. And she created like a VA vertical basically under my business where she could create these additional services, the things that she wanted to do, and she could offer them to my clients, right? Like I have this very large group of women who are already working in my business, through the membership, through my mastermind, through different programs. Everybody needs VA services. So the agreement was, this will be under my business. You can create whatever services you want. You don't have to market yourself. You get to market and promote yourself through my clients. I will promote you. I've promoted her on the podcast. I've promoted her behind the scenes to all of my clients. In exchange, we do a 50-50 split. So you can charge whatever you want, and keep that in mind as you're making these prices, charge whatever you want. But if I'm paying you full time and these are my clients and you don't have to market yourself and you're going to be under my brand, operating as somebody that I co-sign, then it's going to be a 50-50 split. And we agreed to this. Okay, cool. It's happening. So this worked for a while. We did this until the end of 2022. And then the beginning of 2023, she came to me and she wasn't happy again. This isn't what she wanted. She felt this call and this pull that she wanted more. She didn't, she still wanted to start her own business. She had these ideas. came to me with this solution of like, okay, here's how I can support you. I promise you you will notice no other difference. I'm going to have a team. I'm going to build a team. There will be no difference except I will not be your full-time employee. I'm going to take on other clients and you even get to pay me less. So at that point, this is where I made the mistake. Okay. This was my bad. At that point, my heart was like, no, I didn't want to do it for a myriad of reasons, right? Because I was already clear. We already had the system in place. I didn't want to do that. That's not why I brought her on. And at the same exact time, I also did not want to rehire somebody else. This was like, again, the beginning of 2023. I just had a baby, just lost my mom. There was like, I've dropped all this momentum in my business. I need to be picking up the momentum and like getting things up and going again. The last thing that I wanted to do was to have to fire her and hire somebody else in that point of time. So while my heart was saying, this isn't what you want, and this isn't what you want, my logical, rational brain was like, just do it. It'll be easier this way. Who am I to keep somebody from starting a business who wants to be an entrepreneur? Like this is literally why I do what I do. Who am I to tell somebody that you can't do that or keep her playing smaller than what she wants to play, So I talked myself into it. I said, okay, you know what? Okay, let's try it. Let's try it. You say it won't affect our current situation. You'll be happier. I assume I'll be just as happy because things are going to stay the same. Let's give it a shot. Why not? And I can't remember. That was sometime like the beginning of 2023. And for the most part, things were going well. Okay. But, and I take full responsibility for this, I have really high standards. Like when it comes to things visually in my business and processes and things, like there's some things that I don't, and I could care less about, but there are certain things like anything that is front facing, any kind of communication that comes from my business, they're just things that I have really high standards for. And there were things that started falling through the cracks, which, by the way, no matter what the situation is, that's normal. Mistakes are going to happen. And I do think, and I think Sarah would agree with this, when it comes to random mistakes, even big ones, which there were a few really big mistakes that were made over the course of the past year, I'm pretty chill about it. It's going to happen, right? Like when you're running a fast-paced business, and especially me being the type of business owner that I am, who gets an idea and I want something done fast. And she is a pro at that, right? Like I call her a ninja for a reason. She's so freaking amazing at what she does. But like mistakes are going to happen. And I fully understand that. But again, I was putting too much on her plate. So when she would do these things really fast for me, there were mistakes that were made that I let go and I really didn't say much about, or I made, here's another mistake that I made. I would go back behind and like double check things and just redo things. And I might mention it or I might not, but instead of nipping it in the bud fast and being honest, I didn't say what I wanted to say when I wanted to say it. So what ended up happening was kind of like this culmination of a little bit of resentment, right? And by the way, I could feel it from her too. Like we both were like annoyed with each other, or I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but I felt it from her too, And I could just tell like some things are different. Things are just different. And there was one point where I got frustrated. And I expressed my frustration and in a respectful way. But it was just like, after that point, after that point, it was pretty clear. Like, this isn't a good fit anymore. So I was facing or really contemplating, like, what do we do here? We're coming up on the end of the year. Things have changed. She now has, like, from the beginning of this role and what I initially wanted, which is still what I want, which is somebody who's dedicated to this business, a lifer, somebody who's going to grow with me, somebody who's going to be dedicated to my mission and want to grow with the business in all ways. That just wasn't the case anymore, right? She had started this business. She even started a podcast, which is incredible. As she should, but it's just different, right? It's just different. So as I was kind of contemplating, what do we do here? Do I bring up the conversation? I don't know. It was kind of like put in a weird place. She ended up reaching out to me and quit. And in like the most loving way possible, right? She was like, I love getting to work with you, blah, blah, blah. I've heard your plans for next year, and me and my team don't think that we're down for it, essentially. And I was like, well, I'm not going to argue with that. Meaning, like, if you say that you can't handle it or don't want, and by the way, I know she said that not because they can't handle it, but because, like, it's ran its course, right? Our relationship has ran its course. So there's that. And she was so gracious, and she offered to support me through the rest of December, which is very cool because we still got things going, and I desperately need her help as much as I can. And I'm in the process of hiring a couple of new people. So I've learned my lesson, because I'm not going to hire another Sarah. Currently I'm hiring somebody solely focused on customer service and customer experience. And I'm also going to be hiring a Kajabi expert and probably somebody to have more of like a general assistant role. So I'm working on it. But the big lessons that I learned here, and before I get to that, I just want to say again, because I've led many people to work with Sarah. Not that she needed that. That's just what happened. She's freaking incredible. So if you're still working with her, or if you need a VA, go hire her and her team, especially anything related to Kajabi. I think she also trains VAs and teaches other people how to be VAs. So if this is something that you want to do as a side hustle, like, go work with her. She's freaking incredible. It's just our relationship and what I had pictured, it just changed, right? Just like any relationship, you've got to be able to grow and evolve with each other. But unfortunately, she and I grew and evolved in opposite directions, in a direction that didn't necessarily work for me, and it didn't work for her. And a big lesson that I've learned from this, in addition to the other ones that I've already shared, is I consider myself a fiercely loyal person. I've always been this way with friends, with partners, with family. Like, if I'm in your corner, I am in your corner, and it's very hard to get rid of me. Like, you have to do something really, really bad. If we have history and I love you, I'm a lifer. This is who I am. And I think that it's a great quality to have. I'm not mad about it, but I definitely can see how this has not served me in certain relationships and instances, like unhealthy relationships in the past, or unhealthy friendships, or, lack of boundaries with family members, right? This is definitely something that I've been working on. And I saw this kind of came back, like, this kind of felt like another cycle of this with my relationship with Sarah, because in that moment this year where she was like, hey, I want this, and it's not what I wanted, I think it would have been the best thing for both of us if I had been honest with her and just said, I'm so happy for you. I support everything that you do. And I think it's best that we part ways. I think it just, we can't change it. We can't go back. So I'm sure it all happened exactly how it was meant to. But I can see how my quote unquote fierce loyalty, it carried it. I think the shadow side of that is I can hold on to things a little too long when it's already played its course. You know, there are people who come into your life forever and some who are just meant to be a lesson or whatever. So that is the Sarah situation. Sarah, if you're listening, I freaking love you. I'm thankful for you, and you're a freaking rock star. And I'm very excited to see what comes next for you. And I'm excited to see who can fill your massive shoes, because it's going to be a doozy. Okay. Anyway, she's probably going to record a podcast and be like, she was a fucking nightmare. We'll wait for that. Anyway, so that's that story. What, oh God. Okay. Moving on to my mother effing CPA. Ooh, okay. I got to be careful what I say. I can't even tell you why I can't say everything I want to say, but I know one day I will. Okay. Here's what I can tell you so far. Okay. This is going to be a podcast full of wisdom and lessons. Here's the biggie for you. Number one, pay your quarterly taxes. Okay. Do it. Number two, I'm so mad. Keep an eye on your freaking CPA. Anybody who handles anything money related, you keep an eye on them, okay? You keep an eye on them. This is another area where my fierce loyalty got the best of my freaking business and situation. Ooh, I'm so mad. Okay, I hired my CPA. When was it? I want to say it was like 2020. Okay. They were referred by a mutual colleague of mine who I don't even speak to anymore, I'm not going to talk about that anymore either. Okay. So I get introduced to the CPA. Apparently they're really good, especially when it comes to online business. So I was like, cool, let me talk to them. I talked to them. They were great. Hired them. They were fantastic. Okay. I've worked with them now for 3 years. First 2 years, wonderful for the most part. Okay. Maybe even like year and a half. And I hate to say that because it's like, obviously the next thing I'm about to say is for the last year to year and a half, it hasn't been great. And a normal logical person would be like, hey, dumbass, why are you still working with them? I'm getting to it. Okay. Let me explain. It's hard. Running a business is hard. So here's what happened. They came up like a year and a half working with them. They came to me with these fancy options as a client that I could choose from. They said, hey, here's like these tiers of levels of service that you can choose. You can choose any tier you want. And each level of service each option comes with a different level of support and service, right? Like with the top tier, you get like all of your P&Ls every quarter, and you get more tax strategy planning, and you can call and talk to anybody at any time. And, it comes with like a level of, they essentially do everything. And the bottom tier just is like basic tax filing, right? Let me tell you something. I'm not afraid to invest in things that I don't want to handle, right? And hiring people to do something well that I don't want to do. I'm all about it. I am an outsourcing queen, right? So you better believe I responded that day and I said, you give me that top tier service, baby. I see that price point. I'm happy. Like if it includes all of that, give it to me. That's beautiful. If I don't have to lift a finger when it comes to my taxes, that is so worth it to me because I know the time it's going to save me. I know the stress it's going to save me. You're going to strategize with me. Ooh, that sounds hot. Let's do it. So sign on for this top tier service. And that's when the wheels fell off. Okay. Because what happened was I received like none of it. Like none of it. Okay. Just to give you like one small, this is a silly example at this point because what they have done is so ridiculous and wrong and borderline, well, probably illegal, which I'll tell you. But like, for example, one of the things is they pay for your QuickBooks, right? Like I pay for QuickBooks, which is like $30 a month, but they're like, we'll pay for it because they manage it all. And, they never reached out, never whatever. And then there was like 2 moments in the past, let's just say year, let's just keep it clean. The past year where I was like, hey, it's kind of hard to get a hold of y'all. Still paying for QuickBooks. I haven't received any P&Ls. Certainly haven't received any strategies. When can I receive that? Right. So like there were probably 2, maybe even 3 times that I gently prompted and brought this up to them and then full on complained like, hey, this is the 3rd time we're having this conversation. What's going on? And I'm also running a business, right? There's a ton going on, which is no freaking excuse. But basically, I allowed them to full on steal from me, essentially, right? I'm paying every single month for this top tier service that they are not providing. And your girl is just taking it up the freaking butt, right? Like straight up. I'm just like, maybe one day they'll get their stuff together. I don't know. Well, they didn't. So let me just tell you what these rat bastards did. Oh, I'm mad. So it's tax season, right? 2023. And I don't pay, or I didn't. This is changing in 2024. Big lesson. I wasn't paying quarterly taxes. Here's why. By the way, if you don't do this, you do get penalized. So, and I knew this, but here's why. Because you're paying based on the amount of revenue coming in, but you also have a certain amount of expenses. So like you end up basically overpaying and then you'll receive money back. But like, I don't want to overpay each quarter. To me, it makes more sense. Just tell me what I freaking owe and I'll pay you exactly that. Uncle Sam. I'm not going to get started on Uncle Sam. So anyway, it was time for 2022. Well, to do the 2022 taxes, right? So we're reaching out to them. We're like, hey, and by the way, we file an extension. We've just done that the past few years. I don't know why, we just do. And we know that like here soon, I'm speaking like a few weeks ago, we knew that we'd have a tax bill, right? And one of the things that we've always asked them is, hey, let's have a conversation in advance, plenty in advance, so we know what to expect. So we know what we're going to be paying to the IRS. So we're not hit with this crazy tax bill, right? So as we're leading up to this date, which we know is coming and imminent, we're reaching, can we get a phone call with so-and-so? Can we get a phone call with so-and-so? No response. Or yeah, when we book a call and then they have quote unquote network issues or so-and-so is out of town or what the frick? Yeah, there's a family emergency. The amount of times we got family emergency as an excuse, it's comical. And anyway, long story freaking long, the day comes up, the taxes are due. They said, here's your tax, here's your bundle. Here, we got it done for you. And when I tell you these, you know what's, try and tell me that we have a 6-figure tax bill. 6 figures. Let that sink in. When I tell you my sweet angel husband went white and I thought I had lost him for a minute. I thought either he's dying in front of my eyes or he's divorcing me in front of my eyes, right? Big tax bill. Now, my business is great. It's doing great. 2022 was a good year. Very thankful for that. And I also knew I had more expenses than I've ever had as a business owner in 2022. Okay. I already knew this. I kind of like did rough calculations in my mind because I'm not a freaking idiot. And I knew that like, yes, we did great. And also your girl was spending a lot of money on the business too. So I knew this, and we get this bill and I'm looking at, I'm like, there's no way, absolutely no way this can be correct. And sure enough, we look into it and they basically got my expenses wrong by over six figures, almost $200,000 in expenses. They miscategorized. Okay. So we said, hey, we need to fix that, you freaking nut jobs. Like, hello. And by the way, you don't reach out to us. You don't ask like, hey, I know this is due today, but does this look right? Do you want to take a little gander at these expenses? It looks like you paid yourself a freaking insane amount of money. Is that true? Like, no. So these people, what it looks like is for something's going on, right? And they took 10 whole minutes, ran my numbers, ran my QuickBooks, didn't ask if anything was categorized right or wrong, nothing. And before you say, Allie, you should be looking at your stuff and categorizing, this is what I pay for. Okay, this is the tier, like they handle everything, and we're supposed to be having these conversations and they never happened. Okay. What I should have done was fire them months ago. And that's where I screwed up. So anyway, hey, we need to get on a call. Let's get on a call. Whatever. We booked there were 3 meetings that were booked. Every single one, the day of the meeting was canceled and moved days later, right? Like we could not get a call with my CPA. By the way, she won't respond to emails. She is, I don't even know if she's alive or dead right now, like genuinely, because I haven't heard from her in months, upwards of 6 months, maybe even more than that. We've just been communicating with the poor secretary of this company who, and I've apologized profusely. I'm like, I know this is not your fault. You're just the messenger, but what the hell is going on? Anyway, I ended up, I know this is like probably very boring. I don't know. Hopefully this is my hope by sharing this story is that you guys won't make the mistake that I did. But I ended up I said, you know what? Screw this. Cause Chris is like, bless his heart. He's like, listen, just play it nice. Don't burn the bridge because we need all these forms from them. They have to amend the taxes. Like we still need them to do all these things. Be nice. And I'm like, oh, no. We are past. No, absolutely not. Like I'm waking up in the middle of the night, sweating, angry over this. It just felt like such a violation. They were stealing from me essentially. So finally I was like, no, F that. I'm done. So I do a Google search of local CPAs in our area. There was one with amazing reviews. I went and met with them that day and they had it all sorted within a week, y'all. Within a week, they had this, that they're doing the amendment now, fixed everything in a week. And I'm like, we did not. Okay. So again, this is where my stupid loyalty nipped me and like totally it's a problem, right? I should have canned them months ago. So it's like, well, a lot of it's laziness too, because I didn't want to deal with it. But now dealing with this stress, just the past month, the stress that this has put on Chris and I, because I knew it was wrong, but also it's like, what do we have to do? What does this mean? Are we going to get in trouble? Are we going to get audited? When all I had to do, if I had just fired them at the first sight of incompetence and freaking fraud, we could have had it all sorted. I thought it would be a much larger headache to fire them. In my head, it was like, it made sense. Like, just let them finish out this tax season and then we'll move forward with somebody new for 2024. No. So if you are dealing with a CPA or a bookkeeper who ain't it, fire them immediately. There are so many other people out there who will do right by you and by your business, and nobody deserves, especially to be touching your freaking money, who is going to play you like that. So anyway, okay. So let me just close this down. The big tax bill, right? Oh my God, I have the coolest story about this. This is insane. Okay. This is insane. This has never happened to me before. This is where the inheritance comes in. Freaking crazy. So as I record this yesterday, we went and we sat down with our new guy, Tax Daddy, and we're having a conversation. He said, this is what you owe. And the number that he told us, oh my God, I could have cried. I could have cried. We owed something, but it sure wasn't 6 figures. Okay. I was like, thank you, Tax Daddy. That's more like it. That's facts right there. So we got it fixed, and we have like, it's still a bill, right? It's still like, so we're driving home. We're like, okay, how are we going to pay for this? Because it's certainly not 6 figures, but it's also like, we don't just have it like chilling in my savings account. So it was like, okay, what are our options? Let's talk about this. What are we going to do? What can we move around? Whatever. And it was like, it was good news, but also like, okay, we got to move some things around. Fine. So we get home, work a little bit. Chris goes and he gets the mail. And after this is like the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But anyway, I walk in and I see this mail on the counter, and I see an envelope from Fidelity, which is like a investment company, right? You've heard of Fidelity. And I'm like, that's weird. And it's addressed to me regarding my grandfather's IRA or something. I was like, wait a freaking second. So, backstory. My grandfather, one of my favorite people on the planet, passed away in 2022. And a few things about him: he was the most frugal person on the planet, the most fiscally responsible person on the planet. To give you an idea of this man, when I turned 18 and I graduated high school, he came in from Colorado to Tennessee, and he made me sit through an hour-long presentation that he made me with like a whiteboard and everything, explaining to me how to save my money, how much money I spend on coffee every single day, like the most old school. Dave Ramsey could never lecture on saving money, right? Oh, because he had like started me this IRA, and he like, don't withdraw this money. Here's, like explain to me how money works, which by the way, nobody had ever done. So thank God for him. So that's when I turned 18. When Chris and I got married, this man, his gift to us, by the way, we went and we visited him the very first time he ever met Chris. I was pregnant with Cruz, and he brought Chris into his office and for 2 hours sat him down and talked to him about like what investments we had, what we're doing with this, what we're doing with that, and like giving him his advice on how to manage our finances to my husband, who was, Chris ate it up. Okay. It's like, he's like my grandfather a million years later. But anyway, so, and then for a wedding present, he gifted us the full Dave Ramsey, like money university, savings university on disc. Like it was like 15 discs, this huge box. That was our wedding gift. If that tells you anything about my grandfather, right? So anyway, I knew, because he had talked to me about this, that when he passed, I would be getting some sort of inheritance, which I've never received an inheritance in my life. That's not like a thing in my family, right? But again, he was very fiscally responsible and he wanted to set everybody up. But we had talked about this years ago, and he passed in 2022, and I just didn't, my grandma's still alive, so I'm not worried about it, right? Like whatever. Anyway, I get this envelope and it's regarding my grandfather. And I'm like, let's just take a gander at that, right? So I open it up and sure enough, it's like, hey, you have something from your grandfather, reach out to us and whatever. And sure as shit, it's my inheritance from my grandfather. And so I'm on the phone with them and they're explaining to me like, here's what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, so I can't see like the amount until like in a few days when it clears my account. I was like, what's the amount? Like, can you give me anything? I'm dying here. Like, am I a millionaire? Like, what's going on here? And by the way, I knew that wasn't the case. I had an idea about what this would be. So they told me, and all that they could tell me was like the full amount. And then that amount is divided by, I guess, like all the grandkids or whatever. And they were like, you're getting 6% of this figure. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Nice. So I got the phone. I do the math. 6% of this figure. When I tell you this number was within like $300 of our tax number. Actually, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. It was a few thousand over. That's what it was. This number was a few $1,000s more than what we owe in taxes, right? So I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I showed Chris and I was like, dude, can you believe? And even he's not, I'm Miss like signs in the universe, and the universe has your back. And I'm always like looking at things through a spiritual lens, and he is, he's religious and he gets it, but like he's not as sold as I am on the magic of the things. But even he was like, that's insane. Like, explain to me. By the way, it gets weirder. Explain to me how this man passed in 2022. Okay. And I haven't heard anything about this. And the day that I opened the letter regarding this inheritance was the day that we get this tax bill. And it's that similar, like just a few thousand off from the number, like more than what we need, a little bit more than what we need, And we both were like, that's insane. That's freaking insane. And you hear about stuff like this, right? You hear about like people having, all of a sudden, they have these expenses or they want to start a business and then they get this like random check in the mail. And I was like, dude, who gets random checks in the mail? This was my time. Okay. So anyway, we're sitting there, we're like, that's freaking crazy. He was like, well, it's actually put in a Roth. So we don't want to take that money out because there's like a 10%, what is it called? Penalty. So if you take it out, you have to take 10% off plus taxes or whatever. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah. So I was like, that's interesting. I wonder what that amount will be. So I took 10% off of this figure and it was within $50 of what we needed. It was still the exact, like now it's like the exact amount of what we need. So the amount, by the way, we're not taking it out of the Roth, by the way. So calm down. But if we did, it was the exact freaking amount of our tax bill. So regardless, like, isn't that insane? Isn't that insane? I just cannot believe it. I mean, I can, but also nothing like this has happened to me. Of all days, of all numbers, of all things, it was just kind of like this little mwah from the universe. And of course, shout out to my grandpa for doing life the way that he did and hooking us up in this way. Cause wow. But that's never happened to me before. And I just wanted to share that with you. Like, damn, we're good, you know? Like you gotta believe that. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, this is something that I've been working on, shifting my focus again, shifting my lens again, looking for the ways that like it's working out. It's always working out. Even when you pray for something to change, when things rearrange, it feels often like chaos. You hear a lot of people talking about that, right? It feels like, oh my God, my team member just quit. Who's going to fill this position? Oh my God, our CPA is freaking fraudulent. Like now I have to deal with that. Oh my God, our tax bill is crazy. Now I have to deal with that. Like, but things are just rearranging. That's not the end of the story. So I think obviously, like I gave you many, many nuggets of what I think is wisdom. You know, if you're hiring somebody or you're currently in a relationship or a situation that you know isn't right, but you're holding on because you're lazy or you're scared to make a change. I've given you a lot of that, but I want to end the episode with this. If whatever season you're in right now, whatever situation you're in, if it feels like chaos, the story is not done. Right? Like the best stories that you hear that we've all heard, there is that moment, there's that peak chaotic moment where you're like, what the hell is going to happen? That's insane. Holy crap. Is he going to make it? Is she going to make it? Like, how is this going to go? And then the dust settles and you're left with 9 times out of 10, a really badass story. And if it's not, like, eventually it turns into something that is a good story. You just can't see it at the time, right? In hindsight, the dots connect. It makes sense. So it was a little rocky there for a little bit. I certainly was questioning things and I was confused and I was frustrated and I was a little panicky, but things are working out, right? We're obviously meant to grow and evolve. And that's with our relationships too. And if you are in a situation where you feel like you're holding somebody back or somebody's holding you back, you owe it to each other to cut ties and move on. I owed it to my CPA to cut ties and move on months ago because now that our story is not done. Sarah and I'm thankful for all the time that I had with her, but like, you know, who's to know who I could have found in the meantime and the things she could have done in the meantime versus like trying to make this thing work that neither one of us really wanted to do for a while, you know? So anyway, that's my situation and life's good. So I appreciate, oh my gosh, I have things to tell you too. I'm doing a giveaway for this podcast. So do you remember a couple of episodes ago where I was talking about, what was the title of that episode? Hold on, I'll find it. Okay, so the episode that was titled One of the Easiest, Most Potent Manifestation Hacks. And I talked about the power of being Delulu, how like the most powerful people who have created the most insane things, like how they got there was they had to have a level of delusion in them, you know, that was their superpower. Like we all need to have that moment where everybody kind of thinks we're crazy because we're playing that big. And I was like, I'm going to make a hat that says Delulu. Well, guess what? I'm going to make a hat that says Delulu. A few of y'all reached out. You love the idea. I love the idea. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do a giveaway with this. So here's how this is going to work. Because like I said, in 2024, I have some new ideas for this podcast. Actually, let's just talk about that real quick. It'll take just a couple of minutes, so hang tight. I want to do this thing where I test out different things, whether it be strategies, whether it be self-care routines, drugs. Hold on, I'll tell you why. And I want to talk. I want to podcast about it, right? So like it's kind of under the vibe of I'm trying this first, so you don't have to. So you can decide if you want to do it too. So for example, right now I'm testing out meditating for 30 days in a row, right? Like no matter what. And I've talked relentlessly about how I hate meditating. I can't sit still. I'm just not that person, but I refuse to limit myself in that way. So I'm forcing myself to sit down and do this for 30 days, and I'm going to report back to you. And I already have like some pretty crazy insights and some really cool things that's happened from doing this. So I want to do that. I want to do ayahuasca eventually. I'm already planning on microdosing mushrooms, right? So I'm going to be doing these things through the lens of like, I'm testing this to see how it works for me, to see what comes of it, but I'm going to share all of the nitty gritty details with you. And you get to also request things that I try. So if there's like a self-care something, or like some sort of retreat or some sort of practice or some sort of strategy that you're kind of like, ooh, I kind of want to do that, but you're nervous, or you'd rather hear about somebody else do it first so you can decide if you want to, I'm your girl. Doesn't that sound fun? And I realize there are a lot of other podcasts that like I'm not the first person who will be doing ayahuasca. And that's just one idea, by the way. But like, if you listen to this podcast, it makes it like, what, you know, I might have it. Everybody has different experiences. So anyway, the point of me sharing that is to prep for that. Let's get new people here, right? Let's get, let's push this podcast out there into the world. And one of the ways that you get to do that is by leaving reviews. So if you get an influx of reviews and downloads, it promotes you out to new people, much like Instagram algorithm. You get seen by more people. So here's the giveaway. Here's where this comes in. If you would like a Delulu hat, all you got to do is leave us a review on iTunes, screenshot it, send it to me on either Instagram at Allie I. Reeves, or email it to us at assistant@allieireeves.com. Obviously, like, so we can have your name and your information, and I will do a drawing at the end of the year, around the end of the year. And we're going to be giving away, I don't know, at least 5 hats, maybe even 10. And full disclosure, I have not made these hats yet. So I'm in the process of, I'm finding the designer. We're going to get them made. So you're not going to get them immediately, but you will, I'm going to eventually sell these hats and you could win one for free. So we're going to be giving away multiple of them. So anyway, if you listen to the show, if you enjoy the show, it would mean the world to me if you took 2 minutes, left us a 5-star review or an honest review, screenshot it, send it to me on Instagram or assistant@allieireeves.com, and you will be put into the hat for a giveaway of the Delulu hat. And it's going to be cute, obviously. All right. Anything else I need to share with you? I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I also got hit with this crazy, a bunch of really fun offer ideas. All of a sudden, I've been kind of quiet with my offers, and I got 3 really fun ideas, and I think I'm just going to launch them all because I'm a Manny Jen, and why not? So some of them are like, they include close proximity, and they're like 8-week containers. And then another one is a program that goes on for a month and also includes some coaching. So anyway, if you're interested in those, just check out my Instagram. It'll all be there. And that's all I got for you today. I love you. I'll see you here next week. Bye.